Good afternoon, class. This is Mr. Fatherly. I'm reporting back for week 4 digital learning. I'm excited because I learned how to use Google Meet. I haven't affected it to proficiency, but I'm really learning how to, upload the documents while I present. So I am happy about that. I think that has made me grow as an educator. Being able to provide better meetings, better instruction, just anything that's beneficial for you guys as well as the profession. Um, Before we get into the lesson, I just want to say, guys, do not take this as a vacation. Continue to grow on your skills because when you get my age, the only thing you can really rely on is your skill set because older you get, you know, um, older you get, the more limited you get when it contains to your body and how it functions. So again, make sure that we're working hard. I know a lot of you guys have a lot of work to do. You have several classes that you have to attend, and so just continue doing what you're doing. Hopefully, we're making growth. And now let's get into the lesson. The objectives for today are: students will be able to apply grade level phonics and word analysis skills in order to decode words in the text. Second objective: students will be able to read increasingly more difficult text with accuracy, speed, and expression in order to gradually increases reading on level text with comprehension. Third, learning objective: students will be able to determine theme of a story, drama, or poem in order to compose a summary. I think that 2 out of 3 objectives we can touch bases on. Again, we need that interaction piece on participation and things of that nature to help us develop within those objectives. I kind of hold myself, at fault because I didn't know how to use digital learning at first, but now I'm getting familiar with Google Hangouts and how to schedule meetings. Hopefully, I can get a couple of people to participate and we can make the most of this situation. Um, the activities that we're going to do during this session, hopefully, we're not going to be able to watch the video because remember we're based on groups. So some of you guys listening to this may not be your group, but you can apply some of the skill sets in the content area to your instructional level, and maybe that can help you grow in your academics. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to read a story called The Painter Studio. There's a graphic organizer that this contained to this lesson. We may discuss the graphic organizer. We're going to discuss the vocabulary, and then we're going to annotate the information from the text. The annotation piece won't be written down, but it will be verbally stated to you guys, so we can get a good understanding of what the theme of the Painter Studio is all about, and just basic comprehension of the text. There's 2 videos that the curriculum wanted you to watch. The videos are what is art and the theme to prepare you for today's lesson. I'm gonna click on. I want you to watch the clip on what theme is, and then we'll get back to the story.
Enjoy. I'll take the R2 unit. Come on, Moby. Enjoy this movie and visit brainpop.com for much more.
The Mysteries of Life with Tom and Moby.
I'll take the R2 unit. Come on, Moby. How many different takes do you need? No, I don't want to switch roles. Dear Tim and Moby, how do I figure out the theme of a story? And why is finding the theme so important anyway? From Bob A. Thanks for the questions, Bob. A theme is a central message or idea woven into the action of a story. Themes give a story meaning by linking the fictional world with our own. They comment on issues from our everyday lives and from the wider culture. They're a huge part of what makes films and literature so fascinating. If you've ever read a fable, you already know a simple type of theme. Fables always include a moral, a lesson about life. Take
Class, let's get into the definition of what a theme is. The key word that the character in the this clip has stated is a moral that is being taught from the story.
the tortoise and the hare. The hare is always bragging about how fast he is, so the tortoise challenges him to a race. The hare is so confident, he stops to take a nap halfway through. Slowly, but surely, the tortoise passes the hare and wins. It might seem like the story is all about speed and running. The larger message is that patience and determination pay off. The race is used to communicate a lesson that can be applied to real life. Themes are usually more subtle in movies and novels. It's easy to be wowed by spaceships, aliens, and princesses.
So the first example that the clip talks about is, the tortoise and the hare, and that story is more than just running or who's faster, or who won in the race. It was about like the guy said, patience and endurance on completing a task that relates to some of the things that you do in life. Like we can relate those skills to maybe an assignment. Sometimes people may feel that being the first one done with assignment means you're the smartest. No, that's not exactly true. It's it's actually doing the assignment with diligence, getting all the answers correctly, and that comes without speed or without being able to do it in a certain amount of time. I do understand that we do have due dates and things of that nature, but the moral of that story was basically, um, demonstrating effort and diligence to be able to complete a task. And it doesn't always go to the soul and the swift. It goes to the person that is determined and dedicated, and usually their results come out as the winner.
And those are essential parts of the Star Wars story. But to find the themes, we have to read between the lines. Well, not literally. We have to look for patterns or ideas that come up frequently. The repetition of a word or phrase is a good sign you're onto a theme. We call those recurring words or images motifs. The Force is one big motif in Star Wars. We learn more about its symbolic meaning each time it's mentioned. Well, like at the beginning, the Force seems to be just a magical power. But over the course of the series, we learn that it's much more than that. It's a universal energy that connects all living things, and a spiritual balance between light and darkness. Themes are often set up as pairs of opposing ideas, like with the Force. At its most basic level, it represents the struggle between good and evil, but it's also about nature versus technology, the tension between instinct and logic, or the choice between freedom and destiny. And they sound complicated, but those themes are all right there in the movie. We find them by analyzing the story elements. For example, we can examine lines of dialogue, what the characters say. Like when Darth Vader calls the Death Star a technological terror. Then he says the colossal weapon is nothing compared to the power of the Force.
So basically, that's just a short clip on what is a theme, the strategies that are used to identify a theme in the story. Remember, a lot of it is word repetition, analyzing analyzes key phrases and key events in the story. Um, Also, inferring information in the story to get an understanding of what the theme is. They really didn't talk about that because we didn't finish the video clip, but towards the end they talk about making those connections, inferring information, and that can kind of get you to understand what the theme is also. Because I am on a time restraint, I did want to get into the text called the Painter Studio. Give me 1 second. I'm pulling up the Painter Studio as we speak. Ooh, A Painter Studios, taken from ReedWorks. The author of the story is named Jesse Cohn. Uh, One thing that we know, and this is not basically the theme, but we get the understanding that just by the title that we know kind of that this story is going to be about artwork, but we know that we have to read more into it to get understanding how the theme relates to artwork. First paragraph. My brother-in-law Matt is a painter. When you look at his paintings, you feel just like Matt must have felt when he painted them. I asked Matt how he paints such beautiful paintings. Well, Jesse, he said, I put myself into every painting. Now, if we go back to that clip, it says analyze phrases. We have a brother in law. His name is Matt. He's a painter. The brother in law is asking him, like, hey, Matt, what's your strategy? How do you paint so well? Matt responds, I put myself into every painting. Now we have to analyze and get an understanding. What does he mean by? What does the author mean by that? Matt puts everything into his painting. Um, some of the things that I can kind of infer from that statement is basically he puts his feelings, he puts his emotions. I'm sorry, I got some. He puts his feelings, he puts his emotions. Um, he he imagines that he's in the work, and the fact that he imagines that he's in the work, he also brings his feelings and his feelings, which result into him putting in a significant amount of effort to be able to put these portraits or paint these portraits in a good manner. So the character says, "What do you mean?" I asked. It all began many years ago, said Matt, and he told me a story. When Matt was learning how to paint, his teacher gave him an assignment. She told him to paint a picture of his studio. So the brother-in-law asked him, "Hey, what do you mean by this? Like, what do you mean that you put yourself in every painting?" Now Matt goes back and he talks about his teacher who influenced him on how to paint. Sorry. Now what we're reading is Matt telling the situation, his past situation when he was a student, when he was an art student, and how his teacher influenced him on how to be a painter. When Matt was learning how to paint, his teacher gave him an assignment. She told him to paint a picture of his studio. What a boring assignment, thought Matt. Matt liked best to paint things that he found very strange and unusual. Sorry, very unstrange and unusual. So that is kind of that's a bit of information that tells you about the character in the story. He liked to paint strange and unusual things. He painted cities all lit up like the starry sky at night. Giant scientific machines and cactuses he had seen while hiking in the desert. Why would he want to paint his studio where he worked every day? Matt planned on spending the next day painting. He would try to finish the assignment quickly. Sooner I finish, he thought, the sooner I can paint something more exciting. So now we're getting an understanding about Matt, what he likes to paint, and what the teacher required him to do as an assignment. One of the things that we know is that this was kind of like a contradiction to Matt. Matt didn't really want to draw something from his daily experience. His daily experience was attending this art studio that his teacher wanted him to draw. He liked to draw unique things that gained his attention. Cities that were starlight, giant scientific machines, and cactuses. The next paragraph, he set up his easel and started to paint his studio. He painted the flowers, the walls, the lamp, the window, and all the unfinished paintings that were hung up on the walls. I'm almost done, he thought, and it's not even noon yet. But it didn't look quite right. Matt kept painting. The longer he painted, the more he noticed things in the studio he hadn't painted yet. He painted a piece of tape on the wall, a branch outside his window, and a dab of green paint he had spilled on the floor. He even painted a fly that was buzzing around the room and a flick of dust that was coasting through a sunbeam. I think when we look at that last paragraph, and when Matt is painting the studio, he's kind of analyzing. He's analyzing, his environment to make sure he puts together a decent portrait. While, examining and analyzing the environment, he notices things that he never noticed before. So I think one of the lessons that his teacher was trying to do is to get him to focus more on detail, to be able to get him to be a better painter. As I stated, in that paragraph, he was drawing things that he didn't notice the first time he looked in the studio. He was drawing things that weren't finished. He was drawing unfinished paintings. So we noticed that when he really focused in on things, he I think that it kind of improved his ability on painting pictures that maybe that he was familiar with. It was 5 in the afternoon when he finally paused and wiped his brow. He could tell something was still missing, but he didn't see a single thing he hadn't painted. I must be losing my mind, he thought, but I know there is something I'm forgetting. Suddenly Matt realized what he had forgotten. He had forgotten to paint the easel his painting was resting on, the palette with all the different colors of paint he was using, and his paintbrushes. Most importantly, Matt had forgotten to paint himself. So Matt went from, hey, this is a boring assignment, I'm not interested in this assignment, to paint in a studio that he sees every day, noticing that he really wasn't really paying attention to his environment. There were so many things in his picture that he missed, that he felt that was, it was that he saw every day. He didn't include himself in the painting. He didn't paint the easel. We have to finish the story, but I think part of the theme is getting Matt to pay more attention to detail, and this was based upon painting something that he was familiar with, and the fact that he was painting something that he was familiar with, and he was missing things that he should have noticed, got Matt to realize that he wasn't a detailed painter. He wasn't as detailed as he thought he was. Um, Back to the part. I must be losing my mind, he thought, but I know there is something I'm forgetting. Suddenly, Matt realized what he had forgotten. He had forgotten to paint the easel his painting was resting on, the palette with all different colors of paint he was using, and his paintbrushes. Most importantly, Matt had forgotten to paint himself. Matt painted himself just as he was in real life, standing before the easel painting. It was long past midnight when something magical happened. The painter Matt had just painted started to move. I am losing my mind. The painter in Matt's painting dipped his paintbrush into the paints on the painted palette. Matt watched him spread the paints over the canvas that was in the painting. In a moment, the painter had painted the same painting Matt had painted in real life. Then the painter in Matt's painting painted an even smaller easel, an even smaller painter in front of it. So now Matt is like, he's all out of stride. He's thinking he's going crazy because the painter that he painted in the picture now is actually mimicking what he's doing in the story, and he's actually, what he's drawn is smaller than what Matt actually had drawn. When I woke up the next morning, Matt told me the painting was finished. I'm sorry, I missed it. Imagine Matt's surprise when the smaller painter that Matt's painter had painted began to paint an even smaller easel in the painting that was in the painting that Matt had painted. And in this tiny painting, there was an even smaller painter who painted an even smaller painting. In the painting, the painter had already started painting an even smaller painting, and in that painting was yet another painter. When I woke up the next morning, Matt told me the painting was finished. It was the most beautiful painting I've ever made, and I had learned a lesson. So long as I put myself into my paintings will paint themselves. So they wait to the end. The last part of this, the last sentence of the text gives us an understanding of the theme, and repeat what the character states. And I had learned a lesson. So long as I put myself in my paintings will paint themselves. So the first thing that we should do is we should think, what does what does that mean? What does that mean to you? Now, remember, think about the details that were in the story and get an understanding on how it relates to that theme. So, after you come to the conclusion, is that basically when the character put his time, his effort, um, and he focused and he paid attention to his work. That's when he got his best results. Not when he just is like, hey, I'm just coming in here to paint. But when he calmed down and he focused on his task, the paint and just it naturally happened itself. And that's what it's getting into. The fact that he kept repetitively missing things and he kept examining his painting and say, hey, did I miss this? Hey, did I miss that? Or hey, this doesn't look right, or hey, something's missing. The fact that he showed that much pride, determination, and effort in his work, it just came natural. And it became natural because he was focused on his painting. So the theme of the story, or the moral of the story, is basically is when you put your time, effort into something, it starts to become much easier for you to do. And when he put his time in, when he first got to the painting and said, "Hey, I don't feel like painting this," you notice he missed a lot of things, and the painting didn't look the way it should have. But when he took his time, he relaxed and he concentrated, he felt like his natural abilities took over and the picture painted itself. So the moral of the theme of the story is, again, focus on your work, give your best. Focus on your work, give your best effort, and you know, and when you do those things, you usually great things occur. Um, just as Matt's painting became the best masterpiece he drew. That is today's lesson. Remember, theme is basically a moral of the story. Remember the strategies on identifying a theme, repetitive words, repetitive statements, analyzing statements to get an understanding of how it relates to what a theme is. Again, he basically, in his words, the theme was, I learned a lesson. So long as I paint myself into my paintings will paint themselves. Remember key details from the story that kind of gave him the understanding that, you know, he this was the best work that he had made or created because of the fact of he kept paying attention to detail. He kept examining his work over and over again. Those types of things made him a better painter, and that all comes from focus and an effort. Um, Remember, with a theme comes a life lesson. Even in my classroom, there's life lessons all the time because sometimes it's not all about your skill set. If you have a hard working spirit and you're a people person and you do a lot of things right, sometimes that can over compensate your it can overcompensate some of the things that you may be weak at. I have to go. It's great touching bases with you guys. I will reach out to you guys again tomorrow. It won't be everybody. I scheduled a small group. Hopefully you'll get those invitations. Um, Guys, feel free to come on. Outside of what we're doing, talking about academics, it's good to catch up. Good to catch up with you guys. Um, Pick my brain as I pick your brain. We can talk about life, but you have to. I don't want you to look at it as, hey, he's the teacher and I'm the student. When we get on here, we are going to talk about academic concepts because that's one of the reasons why we're here. We're here on the Google Hangout, but we're going to talk about everyday life. You got the Michael Jordan documentary that's coming on, Last Dance. There's TV shows. So I'm looking forward to talking with you guys. Doing a little studying, and hopefully you guys are doing well. Make good choices. I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye.